Okay, that's our presentation for today. Now it's time to answer your questions. So looking at our questions, we'll start with the first one. I'm planning to start a parking lot maintenance company, which would involve asphalt pavement repair, asphalt seal coating, line stripping, and pavement painting. It would not involve asphalt painting other than repair work, and it would only be focused on parking lots, not roads. Other than those places people drive within a parking lot. I believe a C32 license is the most applicable, but I do not yet have the required combination of experience education to get a C32 license. Therefore, I'm planning to bring in an RMO as part of my company. I have a connection with an RMO who has a C8 license and another one with an A general engineering contractor's license. Would either of these licenses be sufficient as an RMO for my business, or is an RMO with a C32 license the only option for the business I plan to run? So for this, because there is a variety of tasks that you're looking to perform, I would suggest that your first course of action would be to send an email to our classifications deputy, and that's at classifications at cslb.ca.gov. And list very specifically all the duties that you want to perform and where. They'll give you all of the options of the classification you need, or depending upon those trades, classifications that you may need to hold or your RMO hold in order to perform the. So once again, that's classifications at cslb.ca.gov. Our next one, does BS in construction management need to be done within the last 10 years to be granted any credit on applications? So education doesn't have the 10-year time frame. So any degree that you have and submit and want to see if you can be granted experience towards your experience does not have to be within the last 10 years. You just want to send that sealed transcript in, and they will evaluate it per the classification that you're getting and issue the corresponding amount of credit to your experience. But no experience, no education experience has to be within the last 10 years. That's just your hands-on experience that needs to be evaluated only in the last 10 years. Next we have, looks like two from Zach. If I was to hold a General B as well as two Class C licenses, so a total of 3, could I perform, say, just a plumbing project by itself, or would I have to hire a plumber sub? Also, if I held a General B license and want to do a job that's mostly plumbing, could I do the job if, say, it included drilling through studs, framing, and then drywall repair and painting? Is that how I would determine taking on a job that has 3 trades involved? So a couple different elements there. Holding a B general classification allows you to do multiple trades on a project, but not individual trades on a project other than carpentry and framing related trades, which can be done on an individual basis. Holding the 2 other C class licenses would allow you to do individual projects in those 2 C classes. So if your 2 C classes are a painting and an electric, you wouldn't be able to contract for just a plumbing project unless you actually held the C36 plumbing classification. As far as doing a plumbing job and doing things like drilling through, if you're doing incidental work to a classification. So in other words, you're putting in a light switch in the wall, which requires you to cut through some drywall, and at the end you have to finish that off with a little touch-up painting. Those are incidental to the main part of installing the frame or the switch in the wall. So that is allowed under the original classification. It wouldn't count as two different trades. So if you're doing a full room drywall and painting, then you have your additional trades, which you could do under the general B in a project that required building and two additional trades. So incidental work to completing the main task is allowed even though you're doing small amounts of what would be considered other trades. All right. On the line for business name of company where experience gained on part one of the certification of work experience form, can I put my union's address? If you are a union rep in a specific trade, yes, you can put that on there. They'll also probably want you to include your union work log to verify the experience. And that would also usually be certified by your union representative. Remember that on a certification of work experience, we're looking for somebody to certify that has firsthand knowledge of the duties that they are going to list that you have performed in the description section. So if all of your work was done by union, sending out on union jobs, then, like I said, include with that your union work log so that they could show validation of the jobs that you were going out on. Our next question, owner builder. For my ADU home construction, instead of hiring a general contractor, if I hire multiple subs and manage the complete construction, will that count as supervising experience? No. Hiring a sub or a general contractor, they bring the experience to the job. Yes, you're like seeing that they completed the work that you wanted to get done, but that doesn't count as actual experience towards a particular trade. That experience goes to the sub or general contractor of the ones who actually perform the work. Does the CSLB consider overseas experience when assessing eligibility for contractor license classification? Yes, we're not restricted as to where you got the experience. We just need the same documentation. So out of state or overseas, you still need to have a certifier that has firsthand knowledge of the work that you did in that country or in that other state. If it has to be translated, then obviously the form would need to be translated into English. If there are project lists or other documents, those would also need to be translated into English and submitted with that. But yes, overseas experience can count, but you still need to have a certifier that has firsthand knowledge of that work performed in that country. How much credit would master in construction management get if I have a master's in a different field from US and college states that I should be doing a master's in construction management and not bachelor's? Bachelor's and masters count the same. It is anything bachelor's and higher will merit the same amount of credit. And once again, that will be evaluated when you send in your transcripts, as it has to do with the classification you're applying for and obviously the degree in the field and everything. So, but there's not a distinguishing difference in the amount of credit you will receive, whether it's a master's or a bachelor's. All right. I'm going to buy a house and build an ADU and do some remodeling inside the house and sell it. Most of the jobs will be done by myself. However, I hire for you contractors like framers. Do I need to have CSLB license for this kind of a job? Once again, you want to check with your permitting places, but any job, home improvement wise, that is over $500 for the job, and that's materials, labor, and it is the project itself. So building an ADU is the whole project. So if that project is over $500, you would need a contractor to perform that work, other than you can do owner builder work to a degree. But if you're hiring contractors, uh, yes, you would need, if you're going to have contractors on there, you would need them if the project is going to be over $500 that you are contracting for. Can I apply for two classifications together? If you're getting your license for the first time, your first application will be for one classification, as testing will be involved. If you have held classifications before and you're applying for a new license, using those same classifications you have already tested and been granted, then the waiver application will allow you to do multiple classifications at a time. But for a new license, it'll be for one classification at a time. And then once you have your license established, you can, one classification at a time, add additional classifications to your license. I unexpectedly had to miss a good chunk of this presentation, so I'm wondering when is the next one that I can join to make sure I catch the full presentation. We do these every first Friday of the month, but also on our YouTube channel. All of these are archived, and you can link to that from our CSLB website, or look for the Get Licensed to Build workshops on YouTube, and you'll find the CSLB channel, and all of the previous presentations of this are archived there as well. Where should I send my college transcripts? So have your college transcripts sent to you sealed, and then include that with your application when you send in your application. In the past, we had people send them in directly from the colleges to us, but once they get here, we have to match them up with an application coming in, and too many opportunities for those to not get matched up as the application comes in separately. So have them send them to you sealed, include that sealed transcript in with your application when you send it in to the board. All right, follow up to my first question. I completed a 5-year electrical apprenticeship in 2012, and I've been working as a journeyman foreman for various contractors since then, represented by my union. So in your case, you would probably be able to get credit for your apprenticeship. So you just want to send in your apprenticeship completions certificate along with your application. And then once again, a certification of work experience showing certified by someone who has firsthand knowledge of the work you have performed. And if that happens to be your union rep, they can certify that, put the union address as the business, and then include your union work log along with that for verification. I'm currently working as a software engineer, and I'm planning to build qualification experience by spending time in volunteer organization work. Is it considered as a part-time? I will continue full-time working current job. So with volunteer work, a lot of times that experience won't count towards your work, and you would need to show that you are actually working employed by a contractor, or because a lot of volunteer work is just not considered depending on the work. Even Habitat for Humanity, which is a voluntary organization, most of those now are licensed individuals. So you just have to show that you actually were working for a licensed entity and be able to show that work for them was some form of employment with them. Volunteering won't count towards your experience in most classifications. What is exactly considered as part-time experience? Anything under 32 hours a week would be considered part-time. So if 32 hours and over would be considered full-time work when you're applying on the certification of work experience, and then just calculate out. So in other words, as we said in the presentation, if you're working 20 hours a week, then you would have to work 2 weeks to have a full-time 1 week amount of experience. So working 20 hours a week, you'd need twice the years of experience to make your 48 months or 4 years of experience. You have to send your fingerprints, criminal record before sending the application or after sending it. I heard that it takes 2 months to process. So the processing of fingerprinting is dependent upon the individual of how long that takes. Most of them with a live scan are much quicker than that, but some do go longer. Obviously, if you do the hard cards or the old roll the fingerprint ones, which you can do, those do take anywhere from 2 to 6 months to process. Your fingerprinting is done after we have received your application and verified it is a completed application and we have posted it. Then they will send out the live scan packet to you to have the fingerprintings done. So we'll get your application first, verify it's a completed application, post the application, and then send out the live scan form for you to have your fingerprinting done. I have mechanical engineering bachelor, worked in a construction company for 5 years. DOSH 30 and construction project management degree. Does any of these count for work credit experience? So once again, all credits for education are dependent upon the classification that you're going for. So working for a construction company for 5 years can obviously be the experience you need if the work you did for that company is the classification you're applying for. Your bachelor's degree will get you a amount of credit towards your experience requirement. Once again, the amount of that will depend on the classification you're going for and that degree. All of that will be evaluated when you send in your transcripts with your application. And as they said, don't anticipate that you would get, a full amount of 3 years of experience because it is going to be dependent upon your degree and the classification you're going for. But all of those things you mentioned, with the exception of the OSHA 30, but the degree, working for a construction company, all of that will count towards experience that will be evaluated with your application. While getting my education in construction management, will my experience working with a general contractor and supervising count? So two separate things. When you say working with a general contractor, it's working for a general contractor doing specific trades. That would count. Supervising can count towards your experience. You just want to be able to show how you became a supervisor. Typically, that's through working with a contractor and then promoting up to a supervisor. So you've done a certain amount of construction experience and then became a supervisor of the construction projects. Your education, once you have your completed degree, that will count towards your experience as well. But once again, all of those are dependent upon the classification you're going for, the classification you were working for the general contractor, and all will be evaluated off of your certificate of work experience and the transcripts that you send in with your application. In regard to get a California contractor's license, do I need to open or create an LLC or corporation, or can be done after you get the contractor's license? So one of the things you will want to know when you send in your application is the entity type that you want to do. There's no requirements of what your entity is. So you can start out with sole owner. And then later, if you form a corporation or an LLC and you want to reissue that sole owner license number to the LLC or the corporation, there are options to do that. Or you can still keep your sole owner license and still open a corporation and get a new license number for your corporation. That is an option. Or if you want to just get your LLC or corporation first and your first license is directly to the LLC or the corporation, you can do that as well. So all of those options are available to you. You get to choose what entity you want your license to be in. We don't have restrictions if you have to go a specific route as to the entity. If someone has a general contractor's license as a sole proprietor, can they also be an RMO in my license? Basically, the RMO will be working with my company as well as their own sole proprietorship. Does that RMO need to have certain ownership in the company? Yes. So if you are looking at hiring an RMO for your company, for them to be on multiple licenses, there is an ownership requirement. That is, they own 20% of each of the companies that they are qualifying for. If they are coming on as an RME, which is responsible managing employee for an additional company, they would need to inactivate their sole ownership. They don't have to close it. They just have to inactivate it, because in an RME, they have to dedicate 32 hours to the company that they are being a RME for. So they can have their sole proprietorship and then also be an RMO in another entity with 20% ownership of the other entity that they are looking to qualify. If I get 3 years of credit for education, how long do I have? How long do I need to have a RMO qualifier in my entity for me to be eligible as a qualifier for my company? So any qualifier needs 4 years of experience. That can be a combination of hands-on experience or education experience. If you have 3 years of credit for education, for you to be the qualifier, you'd need at least 1 more year of hands-on experience to meet the qualifying requirements of 48 months or 4 years of experience to be the qualifier. What options are there for people with extensive remodel experience but have no records such as tax permits to demonstrate their skills and experience? There is a ton of work one can do that does not require permit, especially if you're not moving electrical plumbing, gas lines, etc. So with my experience, how could I get the B2 remodel license? So the B2 is specific for people that have not done building experience that requires framing and building of a structure. However, it does require 3 trades on each project. So someone who does apartment work and goes in and paints, repairs drywall, and does some plumbing work, replacing toilets, sinks, things like that. Not installing plumbing systems, but upgrading a plumbing system, like I said, replacing a sink, replacing a toilet, things like that. That would be the experience you need for the B2 remodeling license. So once again, the main thing is to have someone who can certify that they have firsthand knowledge of the work that you're performing. If that work was performed in various locations, you would need a certifier for each of those projects that you did, or if they have, you know, uh, apartment maintenance where one person is aware of the work that you've done over multiple projects, they can certify it. If it's different locations, you'd need a certifier that has firsthand experience in all of those locations. Uh, Once again, it's going to depend on the extent of what you're going for. So most electrical things, other than just switching out a switch or putting in recessed lighting or something like that, any heavy electrical stuff is going to require permitting, and that would be C10 work. So you just want to make sure that you're within the guidelines. Gas lines would not be, if you're hooking up appliances to an existing gas line, putting in a gas line is not going to be a non-permitted form of work. So you just want to make sure that you have 3 trades uh, for each project. Or actually, I believe it's 4 trades for each project, and have someone to certify your experience, firsthand knowledge of the experience performed. Who's allowed to certify or sign for my 4 years of experience on the trade? I would be looking forward to get a California contractor's license. So once again, anyone who has firsthand knowledge of the work being performed. That could be a contractor that you work for. It could be an employee of the contractor that you work for. It could be another contractor that has been on the jobs that you have performed. It could be someone who just has observed the work that you have done and knows the work that you are performing, because they're the ones that are actually going to list the trades that you have performed in section 2 of the certification of work experience. So they don't have to be a contractor and they don't have to be your employer, but they just have to have firsthand knowledge of the work you are performing. If you apply for a license as a sole owner, can you change it to an LLC later if you choose to change the entity? Yes, we kind of addressed that a little earlier. Yes, you can start off as a sole owner, and then down the road, you have the option of applying for an LLC or a corporation. You have, once again, 2 options. You can actually reissue your sole owner license to the LLC or the corporation that you've opened, or you can keep it as a sole owner and just open a new license with the LLC and the corporation. One thing to keep in mind, if you do reissue your sole owner license to an LLC or a corporation, that LLC or corporation now owns that license number. You can't transfer it back to a sole owner. You could go out and get another sole owner license, but once reissue of a sole owner to a corporation or an LLC has taken place, that number will always stay with that LLC or that corporation. Can you mention the email or web address for clarifying that you are allowed to complete a job in question based on your license? Was that classifications at cslb.ca.gov? That's correct. So that would be the email that you'd want to go to if you have question about the classification that you're doing, or if the job you are looking to perform can be performed with the classification that you hold. I would want to clarify that you said would be considered an incidental and not based on the job. So once again, incidental is something minor that has to be performed to complete the main project. So this is it's minor work that may be another classification type of work, but it would be very incidental to the job being completed, not the majority of the project. So once again, you're installing a light switch into a wall. You have to cut the drywall, and at the end, you might have to touch up paint around where you cut that in. The majority of that job is the installing of the electrical switch. The other is incidental to completing that task. If you're putting the entire drywall up on the room, then that's not incidental. That's an actual trade work for drywall. On average, how long after the application is received and verified will tests be given? So currently, I believe our average processing time is about 2 to 3 weeks for most initial applications. But that is dependent upon that application being complete. So once the application gets here, within 2 to 3 weeks, you should have a technician reviewing that application. If it needs corrections, they'll reach out to you, get those corrections. Once they have a completed application and post it, then there is about a 3 week time frame before your testing will be assigned, and you'll actually choose the test date. So once your application is posted, you'll receive information of how to contact our authorized testing department, and you'll actually choose the date that you want to do your testing. And it can be as soon as they have testing available, but you are given an 18-month period to complete that testing once your application has been posted. All right, our next question is, I have a fine arts BFA degree and have been painting murals in independent contractor for some marketing agencies, painting exterior advertising murals. I think Class C33 license is the closest to this type of work. Do I apply for the license, then study and take the exam? How do I have to pay the $25,000 for the bond to get a license? So all of that information is on our website as far as the bonding requirements. You can get a bond through a bonding agency. There is alternatives to a bond, such as our cash deposit bonds, where you would put cash deposit on file. Once again, that is under our bonding requirements on the CSLB website. Once again, for the painting of murals, when you talk about marketing and using it as exterior advertising, you could be moving into the signage classification. So while you are painting, you're painting for various types of signage. Once again, I would recommend that you contact classifications at cslb.ca.gov. Tell them exactly the type of work you're doing, what it involves, the materials you're using, what it's being displayed on, and for what purpose. And the classifications deputy will let you know the specific classification or classifications that you'd need to perform that work. How do we go about getting a bond? Once again, there are bonding agencies out there which will issue contractors bonds $25,000 is the initial contractor's bond. If you're doing an LLC, there are other requirements for workers' bonds and liability bonds. So be sure to check our website for all the requirements depending upon the entity that you hold. Also, once you send in an application and it's processed and you have passed your tests, they will send you a bond and fee letter that will explain your bonding requirements and your fees for the initial license fee to have your license issued. Does handyman work count towards experience? Since it's limited to $500, there are likely not a lot of projects that will require a contract. So what documents would be used to certify that experience? Once again, handyman is a very general term. It can cover a whole lot. So once again, it is dependent upon the classification that you want to apply for. And then the experience will start off with having someone certify, having firsthand knowledge of the classification experience that you have performed. If when you send that in, if there's further questions that need to be done, they will send out a list of other documents that they may require to verify some of that work. But you're going to start with an experience, work experience certification that is certified by someone who has firsthand knowledge of the classification trades that you have performed. I worked for Unionized Telecommunications Corporation for 25 years. Installation repair, would I submit documentation from both towards work-related qualifications? So once again, for actual work experience, we're only going to look at the last 10 years. So you just need 4 years of experience in the classification that you wanted to go for, certified by somebody that has firsthand knowledge of that experience on your certification of work experience form. So once again, only the last 10 years is what we're going to look for. So you just need somebody to have certify your work for the last 10 years. For the demolition and moving permit. I'm not sure what do we need an underlying general contractor's permit for the demolition and house moving permit? Well, demolition and house moving is an actual classification. So we don't deal in permits, we deal in licensing. So permits are usually issued by city, county. So dependent upon what requirements are needed for the permit, that's not our purview. We would be, if that project is over $500, you would need to have a license for demolition and house moving, depending upon what you're doing. Oh, it looks like there's a follow-up here. For demolition and house moving permit, is it possible to use the work you do as an owner builder on the project for use as experience in that area? So once again, owner builder experience is just for the B classification. So that would only be work you have performed on your home towards experience towards a B classification. So demolition and house moving wouldn't fall under that. So it's not really a home owner builder experience situation. So if you're going for a demolition and house moving license, you would need to have experience in demolition and house moving other than your own home. The owner builder is only going to apply for the B classification. Is there a test that you need to take for the demolition and house moving license? Yes. So once again, every license other than the very specific C61D subclassifications will have a trade exam. all licenses, even the D-class licenses, you will need to pass a law and business exam. And then for all C classification specialty licenses, there will be a trade exam as well. All right. Looks like maybe one last question here. Is it better to submit several verifications from different sources for same project time frame? So the same project is only going to get that amount of time. So if you were working for a contractor building a home and you had a year experience there, just having multiple certifiers isn't going to gain any more time for it. You're only going to get the time frame for that one project, no matter how many certifiers you have. So as long as you have one certifier for that time period or project that has firsthand knowledge of your work on that project, you don't need multiple certifiers for the same time period. What would be the minimum experience education for the general contractor's license? So all licenses have the same experience education, 48 months, 4 years of experience in the classification, including the general B contractor's license, within the last 10 years. So 48 months in the last 10 years of experience in the classification for which you're applying for. All right. And seeing that's looks like that's about it for today. So once again, we do these every month, first Friday of the month. If you have other questions that we weren't able to address today, you can send an email to the address of licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Once again, that is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. You can download the presentation on the banner at the top of our homepage at www.cslb.ca.gov. And if you're watching the archive video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find a link to the presentation down below. We welcome your comments and topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email at social@cslb.ca.gov. Special thanks to our Licensing Division and Public Affairs Office for their help on this presentation workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyright production of the California Contractors State License Board. Thank you for watching today.